Prior to Bruce Lee, martial arts existed in the shadows, mysterious, ritualistic, and walled away in cultural tradition. And then along came a lightning bolt of a man who did not merely alter the game, but pulled the doors off reality. Each tale about Bruce Lee is like myth, too crazy to believe, too Hollywood to have happened. But the more you dig, the more you know, most of them actually did. So let's sort fact from fiction and reveal the wildest Bruce Lee stories the world questioned, until the cameras caught them in action. If this kind of story touches your heart, if you're someone who cares about truth, responsibility, and speaking up for the voiceless, please like this video, subscribe to our channel Spark Science, and share it with someone who should hear it. Let's get started. Long Beach, 1964. A packed audience watches as Bruce Lee stands over a smug volunteer, arms crossed. Bruce doesn't invite him to back up. No warning. No drama. He puts his knuckles against the man's chest, 1 inch from contact, and punches. No wind-up, no apparent transfer of weight, just a flash of motion. The man shoots backward, slams into a chair 6 feet away. The room is silenced. This wasn't a parlor trick, it was raw kinetic efficiency. Joe Rogan has said that 1-inch punch sent a guy flying like he got hit with a shotgun. Not exaggeration. Stanford scientists analyzed the footage years later and found that Bruce's entire body acted as a single, working unit, energy flowing from the ground, up the legs, rotating through the hips, and bursting through the fist. In that 1 inch, he released more than 1,500 newtons of power, enough to shatter ribs. Martial artists from around the world attempted to copy it. Some were close. None were better. Because it wasn't merely mechanics, it was timing, control, and years of vicious conditioning. That instant transformed a myth into a man, and a man into a legend. The punch was evidence that power did not require distance, that strength did not demand size, and that the seemingly impossible could quite simply be muddled. Without the film, it would have been an overblown dojo anecdote. But it was caught. It was true. Bruce didn't gloat, he bowed. Because in his eyes, power was never to impress, but for purpose. The now benign mob sat stunned, struggling to understand what they had just witnessed. Magic tricks do not blacken ribs. Magic tricks do not toss trained warriors through the air. Only Bruce Lee managed that. And if that was science fiction brought to life, then what followed broke even more illusions about the limits of humanity. Imagine this: Bruce falls to the ground, balances on 2 fingers of each hand, and begins knocking out push-ups. Not a single one. Not tens. Hundreds. No tremble. No dripping. And yes, munching away on a regular conversation. That wasn't a party stunt, it was fixation. Every finger supported more than 40 pounds of living, moving weight. 1 millimeter out of balance and they'd snap. But Bruce had tempered his fingertips to steel through decades of pushing into sand, rocks, even steel beads. His training partner, Bob Wall, remembered, he could chat with you while doing them, like it didn't mean anything. These weren't mere exercises for Bruce, they were lessons in precision, stamina, and pure mastery. His hands transformed into surgical instruments able to deliver pinpoint strikes which could shatter boards, or, as by mistake once occurred, dislocate a shoulder with a casual nudge. Doctors later found his bone density was off the charts, his tendons thickened, his pain tolerance extraordinary. But more impressive was the elegance, his ability to cooperate with gravity, not fight it. And 2-finger push-ups? That was just his warm-up. 1. The Green Hornet set. A problem emerges, Bruce throws a punch, the stuntman reacts, but on film, it looks like nothing happened. The cameras, rolling at 24 frames per second, simply couldn't capture him. His fist completed its motion in less than 1 frame. 2. They initially assumed it was a hardware malfunction. It wasn't. Bruce's punches registered at 0.05 seconds from inception to impact, quicker than the human reaction time. The producers were forced to do the unthinkable, plead with Bruce to slow down for TV. Even slowed, his movement was clean, explosive, and surgical. Subsequent movies such as Enter the Dragon utilized special camera rigs and higher frames just to make him visible. UFC fighters today continue to analyze his footwork frame by frame, decades deceased. Seattle, 1960. YMCA handball court. Bruce confronts Yoichi Nakachi, a highly regarded Japanese black belt determined to humiliate the young kung fu instructor who's teaching Americans. The match lasts 11 seconds. Bruce slips 2 punches, shatters Nakachi's nose with a kick, then drives a fist into his skull. Witnesses say it sounded like a coconut cracking on a rock. Nakachi drops, fractured skull, broken nose, severe concussion. No pictures, only witnesses and a poignant journal entry from Bruce, written not in pride, but in remorse. Linda Lee described what happened next. That was the day Bruce realized he was dangerous in a way he didn't yet fully understand. He then trained for restraint, not raw power. This was the fuel that fire-started Jeet Kune Do, a philosophy of fighting predicated on truth, not on convention. When Bruce got to Hollywood, casting directors demanded stereotypes, bowing sidekicks with broken English. They cast him as Kato in The Green Hornet, anticipating a quirky chauffeur. What they received was so quick, the cameras couldn't catch up. Behind the scenes, Bruce was revolutionizing fight choreography, making it story. But when he proposed The Warrior, a series featuring a Chinese martial arts master in the Wild West, the network rejected it. Then offered the concept to a white actor on Kung Fu. Shattered but unbowed, Bruce went back to Hong Kong and burst into superstardom with The Big Boss, Fist of Fury, and Way of the Dragon. Then came Enter the Dragon, the first Hollywood action extravaganza headed by a Chinese icon. Weeks before it would hit theaters, Bruce passed away. But his legacy was irreversible. As Joe Rogan said, there is no Jackie Chan, Jet Li, or Keanu in The Matrix without Bruce Lee. Since Bruce's death, one of the rooms in his Kowloon Tong house remained closed for decades. When Linda Lee opened it at last in the 1990s, they didn't discover memorabilia, they discovered obsession. Dozens of coded journals, each recording a movement, an exercise, or a theory. Training aids altered beyond all recognition. Odd devices for speed, grip, reflex. It wasn't a gym. It was a lab, constructed not to impress, but to test the limits of the human body. And it demonstrated one thing, as much as the world witnessed, Bruce Lee had been holding back. Even as the pain persisted, symptoms of his illness started to show. Folks murmured about his weight loss, hospital trips, and his sudden vanishing acts from the limelight. Some said he was fighting a deadly disease, others thought it was burnout from 5 decades of non-stop performing. Eric himself remained quiet, never acknowledging nor refuting the rumors. But those closest to him noticed the price it was exacting, not only on his frame, but on his spirit. His guitar still sang, but occasionally, the flame behind the strings was a little less bright, as if each string wore a sorrow too great to share. He sidestepped questions in interviews with laughter or evasions, bringing the conversation back to music. But in private, friends would come to say, he shared his anxieties about his future and his health. And throughout it all, Bobby Whitlock was there with him, providing the sort of loyalty available only to someone with a long history of success and scarring. Their friendship had been tempered by the fires of artistry, success, heartbreak, and survival, and it would hold even as the shadows lengthened. When word came of the death of Bobby Whitlock, it hit Eric Clapton like a bolt of lightning. He was sitting in the quiet of an afternoon when the phone rang, and for a moment he just sat there, his eyes fixed on nothing, as memories flooded back, smoky studios, late-night jam sessions, laughter that could cut through even the blackest of times. They had shared stages and songs, triumphs and tragedies, and now that chapter was closed forever. Over the next few days, Eric withdrew from public view, confiding in only a few close friends. He pored over old photos, listening to the tapes they had recorded together, hearing Bobby's voice as a phantom in the room. Privately, He permitted himself to cry, not for the death of a friend, but for the loss of something that would never be regained, some portion of himself. The music community grieved, fans placed flowers and notes in front of Clapton's house, and musicians from all over the world paid homage. But to Eric, it wasn't about the publicity or the tweets, it was about the person he had known, the companion who had stood by him through the weather, the friend who had never turned his back. And so, with humble dignity, he started making his own tribute, not for the world, but for Bobby.